This is the fourth oath. And by the day, as it shows up the sun's brightness. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. And the night, as it conceals the sun. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا. So these are two more oaths. By the heaven and by Him who built it, by Allah. Okay? وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا. And by the earth and Him who spread it. So these are two more. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. And by the nafs, in other words, Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. And some scholars said it as a soul. And Him who perfected him in proportion. So these are 11 oaths. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took 11 oaths. And then what does He say? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Indeed, certainly, the one who purifies his soul will be successful. And the one who does not purify his soul, then he will not be successful. He will fail, the one who corrupts his own self. So now we can see this is a very important point here. Allah has taken 11 oaths. And the scholars have said this is the greatest number of oaths that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken in the Qur'an. The most number of oaths. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath, already we should be listening to what Allah is saying. But when Allah is taking one oath, then we know this is something serious. You add oath upon oath upon oath upon oath 11 times, and then Allah says, and he is successful if he purifies his soul, and if he's corrupt and he's corrupt against his soul, then he's not going to be successful. So this shows the importance of this topic. The second thing, the second reason why it's important to study this topic is because to purify one's soul and prohibit oneself from wildly following its desires is a precondition for entering paradise. Allah says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. That the one who feared the station of his Lord, he feared Yawm al-Qiyamah, he feared the day when he's going to have to answer Allah. And he prohibited his soul. He prohibited his soul from hawa. Now what is hawa? Hawa is desire. But also hawa means wind. Okay? Why? What's the connection between hawa, between the wind and the desire? The connection here comes because the wind is very ferocious. It can be strong. It can just lift something up and throw it in any direction. And the person has no control over it. This is hawa. This is a person's desires also. So the desires, hawa, is like hawa of the wind. It just takes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying that the one who feared the station of his Lord and prohibited his own self from following his hawa, then فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Then Jannah is his abode. Then paradise is his abode. So here clearly we can see this is enough of a reason to purify one's soul. Inshallah, after the break, we'll have a look at some more reasons. Assalamu alaikum.
In the name of Allah, Muslims will be fasting all over the planet Earth. In China, in Russia, in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in America, in Europe, in the Middle East, in all parts of the planet, all nations, all races, all people will be fasting in this blessed month.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of studying this topic of purification of the soul. If we have a brief recap, Brother Gulraz, on some of the reasons why we should study this topic.
From amongst them are that Allah has sworn 11 oaths in the Qur'an regarding, and then mentioned that قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا after those oaths, showing the importance of purifying.
What does that
the
mean?
soul.
قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا.
That indeed the one who purifies his soul is the successful one.
Exactly. And then وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Exactly, which means?
And the one who hasn't, then he is
destroyed.
Destroyed.
Exactly. And another reason, Lutfi?
It's a purification of the soul. Because every Muslim has to purify his soul when he is doing.
And it's a condition for what? For entering?
For entering the paradise.
Jannah. Exactly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in the Quran, He says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. That as for the one who feared the station with his Lord and prohibited his own self from hawa, from desires, then Jannah is his abode, is his resting place. There's another reason, the third reason, why it's important to study this topic of Tazkiyatun Nufus, is because it is important to actually take control of the soul. And the soul, or the nafs, is like a riding beast, is like a horse, a wild animal, wild horse. If a person runs away from it and doesn't train it, then the beast will be in control and he will refuse to obey him. So if a person wants to go from A to B using this beast, he will never take control of it. He'll never be able to control this beast. But controversely, if the person takes control of the animal, trains the animal, and then this animal will know who is boss, he will know who it should obey, and it will do exactly what it is commanded to do. And exactly the same is the soul. If a person is negligent towards it and does not train it, but he just follows the nafs, whatever the soul desires. He wants this, he wants that, he follows it immediately, then he'll become a slave of his soul, and the soul will become his master. And when the time for prayer comes, he will feel lazy, and the soul will refuse to obey him. And when it is time to fast or give charity, the soul will refuse to do so. If, however, he controls and trains his soul and refuses to obey every whim and demand of this soul, then he'll be in control of the soul, and this will lead him to paradise. So when he wishes to do any act of worship, he will order the soul, and immediately the soul will just simply obey. And with practice and perseverance, this will eventually become the norm, just like the riding beast. And so this is why it's very important to purify one's soul and learn about the various diseases of the heart, so that a person can cure himself of those diseases that have affected him and guard himself against potential diseases that he has not yet been subjected to. In the same way, it's important to know about good characteristics of the soul. So we talk about the bad characteristics to remove them from our soul, but also the good characteristics of the soul, so that the person can strive to attain these characteristics and then work towards keeping them. Okay, let's now move on to the traps of shaitan. Okay, because one of the poets of old, he said, وَبِضِدِّهَا تَتَمَيَّزُ الْأَشْيَاء. Things are known by their opposite.